What's up, everyone? It's Ruby here, bringing you guys another video. And ever since the announcement of James Gunn's DCU lineup, it got me thinking, since now I know the criteria for what he's working with, it got me thinking of what I would do if I were put into his situation. Because the previous video that I did was talking about, like, if I were to start it, like, from not knowing exactly what the restrictions were, how I would do it, how I would fix, like, the DC, how I would do the DCU, like, if we were starting completely over. But now that I know that we're kind of starting with the Flash, and we're starting with Flashpoint, this is how I would have announced the shows and projects that are coming down the line. This is my, like, ideal world, and I feel like this would have been probably better received. And this is only a rough draft, of course, and this is kind of a bit of a wish list, but I do like the idea of having sort of movies, TV shows, games, and animation all kind of, like, intertwined a little bit. But I also like the idea of some of those projects being Elseworlds stories, not just like the Todd Phillips or like the Matt Reeves, but actually having Elseworlds projects that are already planned. And so that's why I have this lineup. Now, I would not go with the same actors playing the same people, because I don't think that would work through all mediums, because voice acting and live acting are very different things, and you would need different talents based on that accord. But let's start off with the movies. This is like chapter 1. This is what I'd be focusing on. So first we have, of course, Superman. And Superman has a lot of great enemies. But he has only one. Well, he has one that is practical for a first movie, and one that would work really well. It wouldn't be an origin story, but it would kind of allow you to get to know Superman a little bit more on a personal level. I feel like a good Superman movie touches on 3 of Superman's identities: Superman, Kal-El, and Clark Kent. So that's exactly what I would do with this first movie. So the first movie would start off as Clark Kent. He's just Clark Kent. He's investigating a case about this mysterious thing. No one really, or maybe a mysterious device. And he's kind of wanting to be, the journalist. He's engaging with Lois Lane. And he's just kind of starting out just as a normal guy. And then, suddenly, there's a plane accident, right? As he's, typing away, there's a plane accident. Airplane is crashing. I would have him immediately transition into Superman, do the whole shebang, and have him rescue the plane exactly like in the comics, and also in Superman the Animated Series. It's a very classic moment, and I feel like that has not yet been captured in cinema, and that's a crime. I feel like that needs to be captured. And anyways, this story would introduce one of Superman's greatest enemies, longest enemies, and controversial enemies, and that is Brainiac. Because Brainiac is not a Superman villain. He's not a Clark Kent villain. He is a Kal-El villain. He directly opposes Krypton, right? And this is exactly how you would introduce the Superman origin story. Instead of it being the Superman origin story, it would be a Brainiac origin story, which means that we don't know who this Brainiac is. We don't know if he's an ally. We don't know if he's an enemy. And we quickly find out that he is not here for positive means. I would pull from Stolen Memories. I would pull from some of the great comic books that are of Brainiac and Kal-El's interaction. Like, Kal-El does not know who Brainiac is, and you could easily throw in like a flashback to those Krypton moments. You could include Krypton, even though it's not a Superman origin story, because Superman is already clearly established. It would be a Brainiac origin story, which would be different. Then you would have Batman. And yes, I used this image on purpose because I would take homage from The Long Halloween. Now, I would not put this in Batman Year One. I would actually put this more in his experienced range. Because again, we don't want the origin story, we want an experienced Batman. And that's exactly what we do. He would be like a few years into his career. He has a Batmobile, he has a Batcave, he has everything. He even has a few rogues already built. And this is where we would introduce the concept of the Long Halloween. We have a long night out because something mysterious is happening. And, you would have Calendar Man, you would have Two-Face, you would introduce all of these characters. And I think that Batman would work best with multiple enemies, because as much as, well, it would basically be more of a detective story, because I think it would work better is if Batman already has a suspect list. Like, he already has the villains that were already established. Let's say, I don't know, the Riddler. Let's say the Joker isn't established in the story. Like, he doesn't know who the Joker is, but he knows who Two-Face is, he knows who like Poison Ivy is, he knows Riddler, he knows Falcone. Like, let's say he has like a list of suspects, but the mystery person is not one of those suspects, but he still investigates them. You still have them in the movie. And so basically it would play up more of his detective side over his vigilante side. I think a real true Batman detective movie will be much better received, like similar to the Matt Reeves story, actually. The Matt Reeves story is very much more detective Batman versus vigilante Batman, and I think that is ultimately what would win people over, because it's a new direction, and it's not a beginning Batman. It's literally Batman is Batman right now. We could yet even establish Bruce Wayne and his playboy, attitude and behaviors and mannerisms. So you would have those, you would have Bruce Wayne and Batman clearly distinguished already. You would have Wayne Manor. You would have Alfred. You would have characters that are already established, including Robin and Batgirl, who have moved on from Batman. And I think that the person who should be Robin is Jason Todd. You would be able to introduce Jason Todd into this movie by having him be Robin, right? Because then you have an idea of this is Robin, and you could potentially, at the end of the movie, kill him. Right? Because basically at this point, oh wait, I just realized, you would have to know who the Joker is in this movie. Because in order for you to have Oracle exist, Joker must have already existed as well. But that could be a good thing, to have Joker already established, to have maybe actually you have all of the Rogues Gallery already established. And so you don't really deal with introducing them, but more so who did it. Who is it? Maybe the story is more so focused on Robin is missing, and Batman doesn't know who took him. And so he goes through all of his enemies, like trying to find Robin, and it turns out that it's the Joker who took him, and the Joker reveals that it was him all along, and you have it would be R-rated. This Batman would probably be R-rated, or it would be a very on the line PG-13. Like, all of these movies I feel like should be, like, R-rated or PG-13. I don't think it should be any lower. I don't think any of these shows should be any lower, no matter what. Then you would have Wonder Woman. I think the perfect introduction for Wonder Woman would not be her origin story, but would be the dynamic between her and Barbara. Minerva, not Barbara, Minerva. AKA Cheetah, having the dynamic of the two friends who are, getting along. I think you would set this in more of a modern setting. I know we've had like the World War I and World War II kind of thing, but I feel like it would be a modern day Wonder Woman. She's already kind of established. You can even have kind of hints of Paradise Lost in this, and the fact that she's not home, and she's confiding in Minerva, and it turns out Minerva is very curious, does this like excavation, and when she comes back she's not the same, and Diana notices this, and that this eventually leads into their fight, where it turns out Minerva did some things while on the excavation, and now she's Cheetah. And so you would have two friends fighting it out, and one woman feeling betrayed because she trusted her friend, that her friend would be good, I suppose. So yeah, this is how I think Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman 84, I think had some semblance of how it should be, but I feel like it missed the mark in the sense that it was too much, and it kind of, it didn't work, right? But in this instance, I feel like it would, because you would have Cheetah as a much more established character, and you would have people caring about Cheetah a lot more in this instance, because you would have that established friendship. You would have Diana, really, really trusting her. Like it should definitely be an established friendship. Like you start off the gate with them being the best friends, and then you end with them being mortal enemies. Then we would have Green Lantern. I don't think that Green Lantern should be an HBO Max series. I understand why. It's definitely a big story, but I feel like Green Lantern would be much better with a movie-sized budget. Like an actually movie budget. Because you would need to establish multiple characters all at once. And I think that this is really the direction that Green Lantern should be. Instead of debating about who is Green Lantern, who will be Green Lantern, you have Green Lantern focus on Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner. You would have like the Kilowog. You would have the most iconic Green Lanterns already kind of established, and them having to face this one of their mortal enemies, one of their horrible enemies. You could either have the Manhunters, or you could have the Red Lanterns. I would go personally the Manhunters. I feel like that would work for the first story. I feel like setting up the Red Lanterns too soon would be a mistake. Or, I mean, you could also have it be in like the Green Lantern Corps versus the Yellow Lantern Corps. Sinestro has already been, at this point, Sinestro should be already betrayed the Green Lanterns, and so that should not be the story point. That's been done before. But the story should really be focused on the Green Lantern Corps versus whoever, Sinestro or Red Lanterns or the Manhunters, something like that. I definitely think it would be a much stronger take, and you would be able to kind of figure out, at this point, you would set up all these characters, so at least one of them will be part of the Justice League overall. Heck, even you could have two of them. But you would have those established characters, and there would no longer be the debate of who is Green Lantern, because they all would be Green Lantern. Then you would have the Flash. Now, because we've already done Flashpoint, we can't do Flashpoint again. So I would do it. I would have the debate of who is the Flash be in the movie. Because there's a big debate of whether or not the Flash should be Barry Allen or Wally West. And I think that's the exact premise of the movie it should be. What the movie should be about. It should be about, the Flash, Barry Allen being already established, and then questioning why Wally is like this mysterious other Flash is here. And I think you could really pull at their dynamics. You could have them kind of butting heads, but maybe being pals at the end and kind of calling a truce. Maybe they have a common enemy. Maybe you introduce Captain Cold or like Captain Boomerang, or maybe you introduce one of their stronger villains, Reverse Flash. It's definitely possible. There's a lot of enemies that they have. Maybe you could do Godspeed or something. But I think having a Flash battle or even a Flash race, and like who's the fastest, who is the better Flash, I think that would be an interesting premise to do. And that way you can kind of make it so that there's a way to have either one of them be a founding member of the Justice League. Then you would have Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is a crucial character to get right. I would definitely have his story be an origin story, because I would have him coming to Earth looking for, asylum, seeking help, because there's a greater threat in space, and that's against Mars. The white Martians are taking over Mars, and he needs help trying to, fight them off. So he comes to the U.S., he's looking for someone to help him. Maybe he gets help from Superman, maybe he gets help from any one of the heroes. I mean, there's so many heroes that you could even pull. You could even introduce a new hero in the Martian Manhunter movie, because I feel like that would honestly be like the best way to do it, is to have like Superman and Martian Manhunter interacting. Like, you have it be a Martian Manhunter, but it's secretly also a Superman movie at the same time. This would take place after Brainiac. And you could even set this up in the Superman movie, where at the very end, the end credits scene would maybe be Superman, the Martian Manhunter coming down to Earth and, wanting to talk to Superman. You just have it be like kind of in the Zack Snyder cut, where he comes flying down and you have Superman right there. Like, you would have them both kind of just looking at each other and not knowing what either person wants. Superman doesn't know if this is an enemy or a friend, and especially after just having an incident with Brainiac, Superman is not too enthused to be too trusting right now. So with the Martian Manhunter movie, you kind of set that up, show that scene, and now you know why Martian Manhunter is here, but you also know why Superman might not be as trusting to Martian Manhunter as he should be. And maybe you have that distrust set, and you have them kind of, not getting along at first, but then Superman realizes that Martian Manhunter is in the same situation that Krypton was in, and that's why Superman wants to help him. Unfortunately, it's not enough help, but so Mars does get destroyed, basically. Not destroyed, but Martian Manhunter's people gets wiped out, and so now there's this set prejudice against the white Martians, as well as this setup of Martian Manhunter's character, and that would eventually be able to introduce the problem of Miss Martian, who, for those of you who don't know, is a white Martian. And so that would be able to set up a Martian Manhunter sequel, where Martian Manhunter meets a white Martian who is now an orphan, because the white Martians were also wiped out, and he has to determine whether or not he's going to take that white Martian under his wing, or if he's going to treat her like an enemy, and he doesn't even know if this wise Martian can be trusted. So that would definitely be an interesting sequel to set up later, but that would be more in like chapter 2. This is mostly focusing on chapter 1, so that's kind of like what I would do. Then you would have World's Finest. Now, I would not have this be a Batman versus Superman story. No. When I say World's Finest, I would mean they are teaming up together. And they're not really fighting each other. Maybe you have like one instance where they're like, but it would be more so they're teaming up with each other and helping each other out with a common problem. Maybe it's Joker and Lex Luthor. Maybe it's just like Metropolis and Gotham or something. Maybe there's a greater threat that neither one of them can solve on their own, and so they need to team up together, put the journalist and the detective together to figure out what the heck is going on, and be able to establish the Justice League. Maybe they realize that there's a greater threat at the very end of the movie, and now they need to team up. They need a team. This would basically be setting up the Justice League, because in this movie, both of them would realize that they need help from other people, that neither one of them can just do this alone, and they need to have a team ready to fight the greater threats. And that would lead in to the final movie of Chapter 1, and that will be Justice League Invasion. Now, I thought a lot about what would make a good, Justice League movie. First one. And I thought it would be interesting if through the Justice League movie, we introduced our last founding member of the Justice League, and that would be Hawkgirl. So, we have all these characters established now. We have them kind of interacting with each other. Maybe at the end of each movie, there's this common threat that is being kind of hinted a little bit. And maybe that common threat is not Darkseid or anything like that. Maybe it could hint towards that, but we don't really establish what that threat is until this very moment. And it turns out the threat is the Thanagars. The Thanagarians kind of invade Earth, seeking refuge in a way, but really, this would be kind of double cross a little bit. But in this instance, Hawkgirl is not established yet. We don't know who Hawkgirl is. We have no idea who she is. And no one knows who she is. So we would think that, this is Thanagar versus Justice League. But it turns out that one of their leaders is not fully on board with this plan that they have. She doesn't really support this invasion that Thanagar is employing. And she actually works with the League to help them, to help end this situation. And she actually turns against her own people and helps the Justice League. I feel like this, I also thought about, having the Hawkgirl already established, and it turns out she's a traitor. But I feel like in a movie setting, it wouldn't really work because, it would be relying on too many things. Yeah, I definitely think that is the direction that I would go in, because I feel like it would be a much more interesting and not really done before kind of thing. It would help it stand out on its own, basically. Now, because movies are not just the only thing that was mentioned in the slate, we're talking about movies, TV shows, animation, and games. So I would also, in this instance, introduce the shows, introduce the games, and introduce the animation. I feel like we didn't really get too much of that, So this is what I would do with HBO Max. This is like the live action series, TV series. Lobo. You know, a lot of people have been saying that Lobo should be a movie. I definitely would love a Lobo movie, but I feel like it would be a lot better as a HBO Max series. It would be like R-rated. It wouldn't be brutal. It would be like, it would be a bounty hunter. Like, you know, I feel like as a TV series, Lobo would work a lot better because he has a lot of storylines to follow, and I definitely think that it would be a much stronger pull. You could still give it kind of a movie budget and allow it to really thrive and be good. And so it doesn't feel like cheap or anything. You know, you would give it the same like Superman and Lois budget kind of thing, and you would be able to establish Lobo as a character, and who would later interact with the Justice League in the movies. But you would be able to really draw out his character. Then I would also have a Nightwing show. I think having Nightwing already established is important, and in this case, we would see the dynamics of Nightwing and maybe like the Teen Titans, maybe introducing Starfire, maybe he's part of the Titans already, and you know he's kind of struggling with his own identity. Like he is, you know, he just left Batman, and now he's kind of on his own, and he's having to really distinguish himself from Batman. Like he's still associated with Batman, but he wants to, you know, cut those ties so he's no longer really associated with Batman. And I think he goes through that kind of process, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe, I think in this instance, you would also introduce the potential of Red Hood. Although, depending on how you go about the Batman movie, maybe that wouldn't work quite yet. But I think later, maybe like season 2 or something, you introduce Red Hood, who would be already established in the movies. Go kind of like in that direction. Then I would have the King of Atlantis, Aquaman, be a TV series. I mean, they were saying that Paradise Lost would be Game of Thrones, but Paradise Lost doesn't really have anything wrong with it until Wonder Woman is introduced. But I feel like the thing that would make Game of Thrones, like be DC Game of Thrones, would be Atlantis. If you know the stories of Aquaman and, you know, everything that is established, you would know that it's very much like this kingdom that has a lot of enemies and is constantly fighting, and I would turn Aquaman into a Game of Thrones series, basically. Not exactly in that direction, but it would be brutal. You would establish a lot of characters. You would establish Aqualad, Mira, or like Black Manta, Orm. You would have all these characters established through the series, and now you don't have to worry about introducing them through movies because they're already established in the TV series. Again, high budget characters, high budget show, but it would definitely be worth it. Then you have Oracle. I think having Oracle have her own show would make sense. Yeah, I think you'd go the Birds of Prey route and kind of establish the Birds of Prey through her show. It could also just be the Birds of Prey. But I think having Batgirl as... You would also have instances of Batgirl. You would definitely be able to do like flashbacks, or, you know, do some episodes. Maybe you do it a Batgirl and Oracle thing. So like you have an episode as Oracle, but then you would have an episode of Batgirl and kind of showing the differences between the two, like how different they were, and how, you know, how she came to be Oracle, why she chose to be Oracle after everything that happened, and kind of going through that dynamics. You would introduce a lot of characters through Oracle, including Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain. Like, you would go that route. I definitely think you would still have Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, but you'd also have other characters being established at the same time. and you would still be able to do Oracle without there being too much of a question as to why. I know people would be like, why are we skipping directly to Oracle? Why don't we have Batgirl? But I think with the timeline being like in the middle of the story, basically, we don't want origin stories anymore. We want more so character development, character introductions, and so I think having an Oracle show and having Barbara be already established is important in this aspect in order to have the stories that we really want told, like Jason Todd's story, like Tim Drake's story, Damian Wayne's story. Like, I think that is crucial in this instance because that way we don't have too many time jumps and we can just focus on the characters that are really important to the DC universe. Then I would have Arrow and Canary. I know there was an Arrow and Canary show that was supposed to be with the CW, but I would actually make this the introduction of Green Arrow and Black Canary in the DCU. And I would basically make this a Bonnie and Clyde, but with vigilantes. You would have them working together, arguing together, fighting together, and basically have them being their own team. They don't have to be a part of the Justice League yet. So they would just be their own duo, and you could have them get married. You could introduce Speedy in this. You could introduce a lot of different characters through them. But I definitely think that having it be like a Bonnie and Clyde incident, I think would definitely be really important. You don't have to have this anything to do with CW. I don't think CW should be a part of this lineup. I definitely think that CW would be more of like an Elseworld story, but this would be more of a DCU story. Like, this would be tying directly into the movies and eventually introducing all of these characters into the movie settings. Definitely, since we're now having the movies, TV shows, and everything be connected, I feel that'd be very important to do. And then we have Vixen. I think Vixen as a TV show would be very interesting. It already kind of tested it through like the miniseries that CW did. But I think having it be an actual show with a good budget. I think Vixen is a super underrated character. She has great storylines, I feel like. And she has the bonus of diversity, but I think the more important part is for it to be set in Africa at first and kind of transitioning into more like New York, the Bronx kind of thing, and showing Vixen in that setting. You can even go back and forth between Africa and New York, and showing off Vixen's powers. She has really cool powers, and I think having that established would be really important. And she could later interact with Jon Stewart and the rest of the League, and maybe even witness some things on her end that would be a little bit different from what other characters have witnessed. I don't know. But I definitely think having Vixen part of the DCU is extremely important. Now, I did forget to put Booster Gold on this list because I definitely think that it should be still... I like the idea of a Booster Gold TV series. I think having a more comedic approach with Booster Gold would be very important. And so I definitely have a Booster Gold TV series. I would have Booster Gold interacting with Ted Core and Plastic Man and Guy Gardner. And I think it would be really... I think the route you would go is a comedic show. Just an outright comedic show. Hilarious. You would have... I think the most important thing is that each one of these stories is a different genre in a sense. Where it wouldn't just be... it wouldn't just be one genre. It wouldn't just be action. It wouldn't just be detective. It wouldn't just... it would be... You would have all of these genres being pulled. You would have sci-fi, fantasy... all of the genres being introduced. And then the WB games. Definitely important. These would be more Elseworld stories. I definitely think video games and animation should be Elseworlds stories. Meaning they are not connected to the DCU lineup, although they can be. But I think having them be separate stories is super important, because then you would still be able to have fresh games and still be able to have these characters be represented in games, but not have it be tied to what the greater canon is. So, there's only 2 games that I would introduce, that I would say that we were working on. Superman and Wonder Woman. Why? Because those are already established games that have been rumored several times. Wonder Woman was teased by Monolith, and Superman has been talked about a lot through Rocksteady. I would also mention the Suicide Squad. I think Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. Very important. Again, Elseworld stories. Very important to establish that. So I think having each of these games be important. I would even maybe announce Gotham Knights 2. I feel like it would work. Maybe Gotham Knights 2 down the line, though. Or you could introduce some solo games, like a Batgirl only game, or a Red Hood only game, or something like that. Have it be more focused on individual characters, although also still having team-ups. I think that would be really interesting, really epic. And so, now we have, last but not least, but I think the most interesting of them all, the WB animation, the TV series, the animation shows. And this is exactly what I would do. I would confirm that Young Justice is coming back for another season. It definitely deserves it. It's probably one of the most successful animated shows outside of the Tim era, and I definitely think it's very important to still continue that story and to reassure fans that those stories will not be forgotten. I would then also establish that yes, Harley Quinn is coming back for another season, and because again, very successful show, no reason to cancel it, no reason to not have it, and I would just continue that steam. Now, here's more interesting things. I would introduce Teen Titans coming back for season 6. The actual original Teen Titans. You know how people would go crazy? People would go crazy if they found out that the original Teen Titans was coming back for another season. Because people have been wanting it so badly. And it shows that, I care about the vision. I know what the fans want. I know the fans have been wanting Teen Titans to come back as an original show. Not Teen Titans Go, but Teen Titans. I can still have Teen Titans Go happening on Cartoon Network, but I would introduce Teen Titans as an HBO Max show. Which means better animation, better production, similar voice acting. I would even see if I can get all the voice actors to come back, because I think all of them are on board anyways. You would have Deathstroke being in the show. You can have them be called Deathstroke, or you can have them be called Slade. Doesn't really matter. Either way, Teen Titans is for another season. Definitely worth it. Even if it's just one season, I feel like people would be totally on board for it. And the last one, Justice League United. And I would make it very clear that basically what I would say is, in order to keep in honor of Kevin Conroy, we will be bringing back Justice League for one final show, because it's important to the fans to see those characters one more time. And I definitely think it would mean a lot to everyone to have the show one more time, and for it to be a way to honor Kevin. And I would just say, you know, we're doing this for Kevin. Like, we're doing this for Kevin. Because it's been something that has been requested so many times. And I don't see a reason why we shouldn't. Like, I know it would be difficult not to have Batman be in the show. But, I mean, I think you have that be its premise. Like, have the show revolve around the death of Batman. And having these characters mourning the loss of a good friend, of a colleague. But still having to move on. And still having to stand for justice. The way, knowing that that is what Batman would want. And you could even introduce the aspects of Battle for the Cowl, where maybe an imposter Batman is popping up and wanting to take his place, and maybe you introduce the fact that it's actually Nightwing, or it's actually Jason Todd, and you'd have multiple identities. And I definitely think it would be nice. And that's my DC lineup. So let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, guys. It's been a blast. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.